Hello and welcome to LMTV Spotlight. I'm Tom Walsh, Public Information Officer for the Township. This month we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be sharing the spotlight this month with a face that's familiar to a lot of you who are LMTV viewers, Ms. Brenda Viola, my predecessor here as the PIO. We'll be talking to you about the Mainline Run and the Hometown Heroes program, a couple of programs that are beneficial to our local volunteer firefighters. So without further ado, please take it away, Brenda.
Thank you, Tom. For 10 years, I had the privilege of serving the Township of Lower Merion as its Public Information Officer. The face may look familiar if you're a longtime viewer of LMTV. Over that decade, I developed deep and lasting attachments to this community, and in particular, was drawn to the cause of our local volunteer firefighters and EMTs. Though I haven't been a Township employee for about 2 years now, my successor, Tom Walsh, was kind enough to invite me back to host this program, which will tell you about an initiative that has kept me connected to not only Lower Merion's fire companies, but the 17 that serve the entire Mainline area. And even better, how you can support them. To help me tell this story is the President and CEO of the Mainline Chamber of Commerce, who is also the President of the Mainline Chamber Foundation, Bernie Dagenet. Bernie, it's so great to see you today.
Brenda, it's great to be with you.
We have a lot to talk about, and I first want to start with where we are now before we go into some background. What has the Mainline Chamber Foundation accomplished recently to show support for the volunteer firefighters and the EMTs that serve our area?
Sure. So my history is very much in recent years in the Mainline Chamber Foundation, and we've had a great trend in that we started by giving, I think, about $17,000 in scholarships the first year I was involved. We've more than doubled that now. We've increased that. We were at $30,000 and then $38,000, and we're looking at repeating that amount of donation again this year in scholarships. A lot of people don't realize that these firefighters, these emergency medical technicians are volunteers in the community. And you might have heard these stories recently. I've heard them on the radio about different fire companies trying to recruit volunteers, and it's hard to find people to do it sometimes. And this is a way that we can reward those individuals who show up at a time of need. And they're there to take care of you, take care of your medical needs, put out the fire. A lot of people don't know these folks are volunteers.
Oh, and we're going to go into how that story all began because it's so true. And I think the key word, and I want to highlight it throughout this program, volunteer. Volunteer. These are volunteers. They have full-time jobs. They have homes and families. And yet still at 2 o'clock in the morning, if the fire bell rings, they're there to serve. But I want to talk a little bit because people might be confused with their terms. You're maybe familiar with the Mainline Chamber Foundation. No. You're familiar with the Chamber of Commerce. But are you familiar with the foundation? What's the distinction between the two?
So the Mainline Chamber of Commerce was founded as the Ardmore Chamber of Commerce in 1921. The foundation is a much newer organization. It was created in 2001. It has a different tax status. It's called a 501c3 tax status. And that means when you give a donation to the foundation, it's fully tax deductible as a charitable expense. So really the foundation is the charitable arm of the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. It helps support some of the work we do. It provides people with a way to donate where they can get behind causes. It was formed primarily for educational purposes, and scholarships have really been what it's all about ever since its beginning in 2001.
Yeah, and it has just grown exponentially. And we want to talk about how people can help, but still going back a little further, because I got to tell you, Bernie, how long have you been with the Mainline Chamber of Commerce?
About 3.5 years now.
3.5 years, and in that 3.5 years, you need sunglasses because the future is so bright at the Chamber. There have been some great things happening. A lot of people have heard about SPW, the Society of Professional Women, the best networking that you can have, whether you're male or female in the area. You do some great programs. And one that's near and dear to my heart is Leadership Mainline. What is Leadership Mainline?
Yes, so Leadership Mainline is now in its 11th year. It's a 6-month program where we have 23 people are currently going through in the current class. And for the first 6 months of every year, they get to, we think about 3 words with the program: leadership, legacy, and connection. And leadership is teaching people about leadership, being effective in their communities, making a difference within their companies. The legacy part is thinking about what's going to happen after you're gone. You know, what are you leaving behind? What work are you doing now that will have a lasting impact? And every class, in fact, takes on a project together that is meant to outlive the class. They do something that is supposed to continue on after them, so that's very exciting. And then the connection part is not just connection with the community, although it's a big part of it. We have some great days. We get to see some of the great community assets like Valley Forge Military Academy. We spent a day at Lower Merion Township building. We learned about government, the Marion Cricket Club. We get a day in Philadelphia looking at cultural assets. So it's connection with the community, but also connection with nonprofits in the community. Nonprofits are a big component of the program because part of it is we're teaching leadership through the lens of nonprofit board service. Then it's also connection with your classmates. So this year, 23 people. If you're lucky enough to be one of those folks, you have 22 other people you're building relationships with. And those are powerful, lasting relationships.
They really are. And I can tell you, as a proud member of the class of, was it 2004? Yeah, yes. 10 years. 10 years ago, yes. I did Leadership Mainline. And the people in that class, I learned in the class itself, all the field trips we took, all the amazing speakers we had, but rubbing shoulders with my peers throughout all different types of industry and professions and organizations along the main line. It was really a life-changing experience for me. And I want to tell you about our project that we had back in 2004, but what are some of the other projects that Leadership Mainline classes have come up with?
Sure, so in recent years, one of them was they looked at a free healthcare provider, the clinic in Phoenixville, and they helped them with their marketing, their positioning, and how their logo looked, so that was a great project. They helped, a class helped the Devereaux Foundation, which had some shops that they have a flower shop there and an auto repair shop and a bike shop, probably some other things going on in Berwyn, in a complex there. And it needed to be marketed differently, so it was a whole plan that is rolled out. Actually, there was a story in the Philadelphia Inquirer a couple months ago about how that operation has evolved. And Leadership Mainline was very essential in coming up with a strategy that was carried out over a number of years. And then another Lower Merion Township related project was, I believe it was called the LifeLock Project. So this was a way. Lock for Life.
So cool. So that when someone is perhaps stuck in their home, maybe they're elderly or they have other issues, and a police officer or an EMT doesn't have to break down the door or the window to get involved and save that person. Right. They have access to a key, and it's all done through the police department to gain access. Lock for Life. I forgot about that program. That is awesome.
So it's going on today, and actually another police department has taken it up since Lower Merion started it. So.
Yeah, and it actually won an award too. So
yes.
Here's the picture. Leadership Mainline. You've got about 20 professionals in the room, and you're striving to come up with a project that'll live on after the class is over. And I remember back in 2004 sitting in that room, a little bit nervous because, these are some real movers and shakers. And there were some ideas, but I had been involved with the Township of Lower Merion as the PIO. And I would hear former Chief Harry Knorr talk about how if we do not recruit and retain volunteer firefighters, that it will disrupt the very fabric of our communities, and it would cost taxpayers about 30% more in their property taxes to go from a volunteer force to a fully paid fire service. And that one of the keys to recruitment and retention is appreciation. Mm-hmm. We then as a class all got behind it, and thanks for giving me the leeway to tell my story here, but we found that many people in the community weren't even aware that their firefighters were volunteers. They thought that they were paid. They thought that their taxpayer dollars fully funded the fire service, so why donate? But that's not true. Even though the townships are very generous to the fire companies, it doesn't fully cover the costs. And we learned that it's generational. A lot of these fire companies, it's a great-grandfather and a father and their son, and it goes on. But the legacies, if we don't show appreciation and really nurture these young firefighters, it's going to go away. So it was sort of like a red flag, and we wanted to create awareness. And so our firefighter campaign started, and we did a poster to raise awareness. Kids loved the poster. Kids love firefighters. How many little boys and little girls even say, I want to grow up and be a firefighter? So we did this poster, and we had the firefighters sign it, sort of like they were celebrities. We did a big celebration and a rally for our firefighters. We did some videos, and then we graduated. And we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but we knew that there was this need, and a pressing need for the community to rally around our volunteer fire companies. And then the foundation said, we'll take it on. That has made all the difference in the world, because having the Chamber and the Chamber Foundation behind this cause has kept it in the forefront of the community, and I couldn't be more excited about it. So the foundation, when did it decide to really focus on the firefighters and EMTs?
And I have to say, before I answer that question, is you mentioned the word volunteer being an important theme, and I think that that's essential that we talk about. Not only are we honoring volunteers here who are emergency responders, but the people who are running this are volunteers as well. The Chamber really devotes very minimal resources to the foundation. It's its own entity. So they're really the volunteers that run it. And you have been a great volunteer and a real star of this effort. So I want to thank you on behalf of the community, on behalf of the Mainline Chamber Foundation, for your leadership. When it comes to where the idea came, it's for us as an organization, any organization I've ever been involved with, you ask yourself, is this where we ought to be? Are we spending our time and effort? Is it resonating with people? And I tell you, the volunteer firefighters, the EMT scholarship program, among all the things we do as a chamber, you referenced a few of them before, this really resonates with a lot of individuals and people in communities. They realize that we're doing important work, and we hear from parents, and we meet these people who are receiving the awards, and they are so appreciative of it, and the letters that they write us. And so we know that we're doing important work, and that's become over years. So in the few years that I've been involved, we've sharpened our focus in that direction. And that's been an easy decision because it matters to people. And it's worth our time. It's worth our time as volunteers to meet at 7:30 in the morning in order to talk about how we're going to do this, to run committee meetings in the afternoon after work to talk about how the run, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go on, how the run's going to progress this year. So it's a inspiring cause. It's inspiring to the community. It's inspiring to us. That's why we're doing it.
It's right. And we want to tell you, before we head into a break, that you can see firsthand what we're talking about. On June 5th, right here in the Lower Merion Township Administration Building, in the Eileen Trainer Boardroom, we're going to have a celebration of hometown heroes. And we're going to give out check after check after check to young volunteer firefighters starting at 6:30 p.m. right here in the Township of Lower Merion. And it's all the funds raised through the foundation and going to say thank you to those young men and women and support them and nurture them as they pursue their continuing education and continue to volunteer. We're going to talk more about that when we come right back. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned. We've got lots more to talk about.